Hi folks, back again, Bathrobe Chronicles number 125. Yes, I have been gone for a while. Just sort of took a break. Before I start talking about what the topic is going to be tonight, from time to time I get what I would call a negative kind of response to some of my posts, and I can, appreciate that. Hey, we all think different things, and that's just the way it is. And normally I actually, I don't knock them off. I just leave them there, and if they're comments on ones quite a while back where I had that approval thing on there, I typically approve them. Recently got one and went to the person's channel or website or whatever you call it, excuse me, and the person was 24 years old. And not that you can't be obviously bright at 24 and all of that, but I think for most of us there's a certain knowledge of the world, for lack of a better word, that I doubt many 24-year-olds have. However, what this fellow was saying was that that applied kinesiology stuff, which is absolutely bogus, that stuff the chiropractors use, had helped so many people. I had thought about writing him and telling him that if he would provide me, with a link to any kind of trials that have been done that would prove that it actually works, that I'd be more than happy, to run a segment showing that it works. But I figured it just wasn't worth the energy, and all the searching I've done out there, I've never found anything, of course, that would validate that this kinesthesiology stuff works. But anyway, I just thought I would throw that out there. And one gentleman actually posted something on my channel. I always think of website, but channel thing, and was wondering where I was. Well, I'd just taken a break for a while. But anyway, what I want to talk about tonight is Simon Singh, S-I-N-G-H. And this is going to be sort of like a show and tell kind of thing, and also I'm going to be rambling. I've got tons of pages here. I've been meaning to talk about him for quite a while, and the thing that always got me hung up is I'm going to have to try to explain the difference between the British courts and our courts here in the U.S. And I always felt so inadequate to explain that. Basically, if I say something about you in the U.S. and you want to sue me, then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to prove that what I said was not true and also caused you harm, more or less. I'll let you lawyers out there worry about that. Whereas it seems like in the UK, in England, it's sort of reversed. Now, this started about 2 years ago, and as I said, I've been meaning to have a segment on this for a long time, and I just felt so inadequate about the being knowledgeable about the difference between the British courts and the U.S. courts. But basically that sort of summarizes it, I think, is that over here, if I say something about you, you have to prove that it's not true and that it caused you harm, whereas it's reversed over in England. Anyway, let me tell you a little something about Simon Singh. He was born in '64, and his family immigrated from India to Britain in 1950. Now, this gentleman has a PhD in particle physics. I can barely spell particle or physics. This is not some lightweight guy. This is a, of course I don't know Simon Singh, you guys know that. He just seems like a delightful fellow. He's had TV programs that he's produced, and on and on and on. In 2003 he was given that MBE that they give in England, member of the Order of the British Empire, and for services to science, technology, and engineering, and education and science communication. Other people have given him honorary doctorates in, one was given in mathematics. this is not this is not just some schmo on the street with a couple of mail-order degrees. Seemingly Singh is the real deal. Anyway, he writes for The Guardian, which seemingly is England's answer to what the New York Times used to be. And so he wrote this article, and he got sued. The article was about my favorite subject, chiropractors. And one of the this is a quote. The British Chiropractic Association claims that their members can treat children with colic, sleeping and feeding problems, frequent ear infections, asthma, and prolonged crying, even though there is not a jot of evidence. This organization is the respectable face of the chiropractic profession, and yet it happily promotes bogus treatments. Remember the bogus. Now, when I assume, well, anyway, when the British Chiropractic Association came after him, I think what The Guardian and Simon Singh had hoped was that they would be put to the test. In other words, show that this isn't true. But that isn't the way it happened. And in the first court hearing or what have you, the judge ruled that Simon Singh, when he used the word bogus, meant that the chiropractors knew they were doing something that was bogus. He, of course, came back and countered and said, no, that isn't what he meant. He meant that the treatment in and of itself was bogus. He wasn't saying that when they were doing this, they knew it was bogus. So anyway, the court ruled against him. And at that time, he had the option of whether or not to continue. He did continue. And now another court, and you're going to have to look this up if you're actually concerned about it, I guess overruled that first judge's conclusion. However, he has spent supposedly about £200,000 over the past 2 years in attorney's fees. And the interesting thing about England is they have people who are suing through English courts, even though they're suing people who've never lived in England. There was a lady, it's in this pile of stuff I don't feel like wading through, who lives in the United States, who wrote a book. 13 of her books were actually sold in England, and someone, I think from Saudi Arabia or somewhere, sued her, and she ended up settling out of court for, I think, £100,000. Anyway, let me get back to part 2. Be right back.